Hello again, everybody. Andrew Rogers here for TST Total Sports Talk. Thank you very much for joining me. As always, it's a pleasure to be here. This is the TST Total Sports Talk inaugural Yahoo Fantasy Football League, Episode 2. Week 1 is in the books in the NFL, and what a week it was. Let's just get right into it here. 6 matchups all across the board of our 12 teams. We start with matchup number 1. It was the Golden Taint prevailing over the Denver Broncos. 177 to 140-28. Originally coming in, the projection had Denver Broncos pummeling the Golden Taint in this matchup. However, it was not to be. The Golden Taint got good production out of Tyrod Taylor, who scored 38.76 points. Keenan Allen had 14.50 points. Zach Ertz had a very good performance, 1730 from the tight end position. Golden Tate was very good, 24-40 for him from Detroit, the wide receiver. Dan Bailey was very good from the Dallas Cowboys, had 15 points. But really the undoing, I think, was on the Denver Broncos side. He did not get the kind of production he was looking out of Tom Brady. He only scored 26.68 points in comparison to the 58.22 points he was projected. He had a ton of guys score very, very low. Emmanuel Sanders, John Brown, Bilal Powell, Hunter Henry, the tight end, got 0 points for the LA Chargers last night in their game against Denver. Mike Wallace, 1.80 points. It's just not going to cut it when it comes to a matchup of this magnitude. And the Denver Broncos go to 0-1. Golden Taint goes to 1-0 with the victory. Over to matchup number 2, Johnny Flores' team defeated Brandon's Bold team 186-33 to 152-94. Some of Johnny Flores' team's big go guys were, we had Jeremy Maclin on his team, 13.60. We had the Hooper from Atlanta Falcons, the tight end. He had 23.80 points for him. He was very, very good in the win. Jonathan Stewart also had a very good performance for him, 16.20 points for Jonathan Stewart for the Carolina Panthers in one of the flex positions there. Also, Deshaun Kaiser out of the Cleveland Browns had 40.58 points for him in terms of in comparison to his projection, 26.15. So he had a much better performance than he was projected to have. Brandon's Bull team, I think their undoing, had Scott Tolzien in the starting lineup at the QB position. He only registered 10.32 points. Doug Baldwin struggled, 10 points from him. Tyler Eifert, 1.40 points. And the Minnesota D only had 2 points for him. Brandon's Bull team goes to 0-1, and Johnny Flores' team goes to 1-0. Over to matchup number 3, it saw a very close matchup between a team has no name and the Quarter Pounders. A team has no name coming out on top, 162.09 to 159.49. This was a very good matchup all the way through. Quarter Pounders making it interesting. They had Phillip Rivers and Trevor Siemian going in the late one last night. They both combined for almost 90 points between the two of them that made up some ground, but it was to no avail. Marcus Mariota, for a team who has no name, was very good, 43.84 points. Tyreek Hill from Kansas City in the Thursday nighter had 30.15 points, very good. As well in that game, Mike Gillislee was a TD Vulture, scoring 3 touchdowns from the rushing position. He had 22.50 points to lead the way there. The Quarter Pounders undoing had Martavius Bryant only scored 3.40 points for Pittsburgh Steelers. Jimmy Graham, 3.80 points for the Seattle Seahawks. New England D, 1 point, and Adam Vinatieri, the kicker for Indianapolis Colts, only registered 3 points. For the Quarter Pounders, they moved to 0-1. The team has no name, goes to 1-0. Over to matchup number 4, it had Eds Reed and Houston Strong. This matchup was a blowout from the beginning. Eds Reed got a massive, massive night with the fantasy football leader of week number 1. We had Kareem Hunt, the running back from Kansas City, putting up 48.60 points to lead the way for Eds Reed. He wins 284.98 to 187 over Houston Strong. Some of the big other performers for Eds Reed was Randall Cobb, Adam Thielen, was very good. Ezekiel Elliott had 22 points. Jason Witten, 18.90 points. Will Lutz kicked 4 field goals last night for the New Orleans Saints. He put up 14 points. And the Philadelphia defense was very, very good against the Washington Redskins. They registered 22 points for Eds Reed. Houston Strong just couldn't combat the Eds Reed slaughter. Chris Hogan only put up 3.50 points. Zay Jones, wide receiver out of Buffalo Bills, 3.10. Le'Veon Bell struggled. He didn't get a lot of production. Most of it was the passing attack to Antonio Brown. 7.70 points for Le'Veon Bell as comparison to the 21.76 points he was projected to have. Houston Strong moves to 0-1. Eds Reed moves into the number 1 position after week number 1. He is 1-0. Matchup number 5 saw D Nice's team and OJ's parole board go head-to-head, and it was D Nice's team that come out on top. They were projected to win, and they did so in this matchup, 172-40 to 151-86. Big producers for D Nice's team: Matt Ryan, 43.94 points for the Atlanta Falcons. LaShawn McCoy was very good, 23.90 points. Graham Gano, 11 points from the kicker position, and the Seattle defense had 7 points for him. OJ's parole board, they struggled. They had some guys that put up very little numbers. Mike Evans, unfortunately, his game was canceled. For the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, he had him in the starting lineup. He produced 0 points. T.Y. Hilton, 6.70. Adrian Peterson, 1.80 in a poor showing in his return to Minnesota last night. Rob Kelly from the Washington Redskins, only 3 points. The Houston defense was beaten by Jacksonville. They scored 0 points. Just couldn't get it done for OJ's parole board. They fall to D Nice's team. They moved to 0-1. D Nice's team to 1-0. And our final matchup was actually a slugfest between the Birmingham Chiefs and the Bounty Hunters. Bounty Hunters originally projected to defeat them, 219-02 to 203-47. However, it was the Birmingham Chiefs coming out on top, 247-04 to 224-22. Big producers out of this one. They saw this was a pretty good trend, was that the Thursday game between the Kansas City Chiefs and New England Patriots produced a lot of big fantasy numbers for a lot of unsuspecting guys like my next guy here. Alex Smith from the Birmingham Chiefs put up 70.02 points. Big ups on Alex Smith's part. He almost went for 400 yards and threw the 4 touchdowns. He was projected at 32.22 coming in, and he had a huge game. Also producing for Birmingham Chiefs was Antonio Brown of Pittsburgh, 32.20 points. Amari Cooper was very good for the Oakland Raiders, 17.20. Todd Gurley, very good performance, 20.60 points. And the Pittsburgh defense was very good for the Birmingham Chiefs, 18 points from them. Bounty Hunters, very strong top to bottom, but they could not make up for the points that were scored by Alex Smith. Some of his big performers, Drew Brees, Derek Carr, were very good. Melvin Gordon had 18.90 points. Ty Montgomery, 19.30 points. And the Baltimore defense had 25 points in a shutout over the Cleveland Browns. So the Bounty Hunters unfortunately go to 0-1 in a tough Week 1 matchup. Birmingham Chiefs are in the second position after Week number 1. They are in the second position. They are 1-0 as well. Looking ahead now to this Week 2 in the matchups here. We got the Denver Broncos against Johnny Flores' team. Denver Broncos 0-1, 12th place in the league. Johnny Flores' team is 1-0 after a win last week. He's in 3rd place. We got the Denver Broncos right now projecting to beat Johnny Flores' team 226-34 to 179-99. We'll see how that shakes down. Matchup number 2 has the Golden Taint up against the Bounty Hunters. Golden Taint's in number 4 place, and Bounty Hunters is number 7 at 0-1. Right now, the Bounty Hunters projected to beat Golden Taint 221-46 to 203-48. Matchup number 3 has a team that has no name up against Brandon's Bull team. They are projecting right now to beat Brandon's Bull team 188-24 to 134-98. Of course, it doesn't help that he has Scott Tolzien in the lineup, who's projecting 0 points after being replaced by Jacoby Brissett last week against the LA Rams. He also has David Johnson in the lineup, who's currently right now projecting 0 points. It was announced earlier today that he will miss a significant amount of time with the Arizona Cardinals. David Johnson, the running back there, after exiting with a wrist injury, they're saying it could be somewhere in the neighborhood of 3 to 4 months that David Johnson will miss. and no question as to whether, we're not sure as to what point in the season he will be okay to return, if at all. So yes, right now, a team that has no name is projected to beat Brandon's Bowl team 188-24 to 134-98. Matchup number 4 sees first place Ed Reed's going up against the Quarter Pounders. They are projecting to defeat them 210-99 to 189-02. Ed Reed had a very good showing in week number 1. Can he duplicate it in week number 2? We'll have to see. He's 1-0 and in first place in the TST Total Sports Talk inaugural Yahoo Sports Fantasy Football League. Matchup number 5 features D Nice's team up against Houston Strong. This looks like it has a potential to be a real barn burner. D Nice's team projecting 214-44, while Houston Strong is at 204-73. D Nice's team 1-0, 5th place. Houston Strong is 0-1 in 8th place. Should be a really good matchup. There's a lot of good talent on either side of the ball. And our final matchup for week number 2 features the Birmingham Chiefs and OJ's parole board. This is actually projecting to be very close, and it'll be interesting to see whether or not it shakes down that way. Birmingham Chiefs is looking to project to win this one, to move to 2-0. They're projecting 203-64. OJ's parole board projecting 200.07 in this matchup. Should be a dandy. Now, there were some transactions that took place in the last week for the Yahoo Fantasy Football League for TST Total Sports Talk. The Denver Broncos added Paul Richardson to their lineup at the wide receiver position for the Seattle Seahawks. In doing so, they had to drop Philip Dorsett, who was acquired by the New England Patriots, for Jacoby Brissett of the Indianapolis Colts. The wide receiver position is where he is slotted. Brandon's Bowl team made a couple of moves. They added Tom Savage at the quarterback position for the Houston Texans. In doing so, they had to drop the LA Rams defense. Brandon's Bowl team then added Scott Tolzien and subsequently dropped Tom Savage. Made a swap for the quarterback position. I've done this a bunch of times. You pick up a guy, you read that the other guy might have a better performance, you drop him for him. I get it. I've done it. Ed Reed dropped Chris Carson, Seattle running back, and in doing so, dropping Torrey Smith, Philadelphia Eagles wide receiver. In our final transactions, Ed Reed dropped Thomas Rawls and Kevin White, who was lost to the season for a broken collarbone, from the Chicago Bears at the wide receiver position. They are very thin there at the wide receiver position. And the Denver Broncos dropped Cordarrelle Patterson after he had kind of a weak performance for the Oakland Raiders in their Week 1 win over the Tennessee Titans. He plays wide receiver. Now, if you're struggling to find a guy to replace an injury or a potentially lost player from your team, here are some of the recommended waiver wire ads. These are the top waiver wire ads in the Yahoo Fantasy Football League, all over across the board. Right now you have Javorius Buck Allen of the Baltimore Ravens projecting the top running back. He's a top waiver wire ad right now at the running back position for the Baltimore Ravens. They just lost Danny Woodhead potentially for the year due to injury in week number 1. Also, one of the top waiver wire ads is Kerwin Williams, running back out of the Arizona Cardinals, due to the loss of David Johnson. The Oakland defense is our number 3 waiver wire ad. Kenny Golladay, number 4, Detroit Lions wide receiver, 2-touchdown day last week. Jesse James, tight end out of Pittsburgh Steelers, is number 5. Tariq Cohen is the running back out of Chicago Bears, who had a very, very good game, stepped up huge when Kevin White went down. He is number 6. Giorgio Tavecchio, the Oakland Raiders kicker, kicked 2 field goals over 50 yards in place of Sebastian Janikowski, who is dealing with back ailments, and he is the number 7 waiver wire ad this week. Number 8 is Alvin Kamara, who led the New Orleans Saints in touches from the running back position. He's number 8. Number 9 is Blair Walsh from the Seattle Seahawks, the kicker. And number 10, rounding out our top 10, is the other Arizona Cardinals running back, Andre Ellington. Not sure who's going to get the bulk of the carries there, but it'll be interesting anyways to see how that shakes down. That brings us now to our week number 2 matchups in the NFL. It's a full slate of games. As far as we know right now, there are 16 games scheduled between the 32 teams. There are 2 games, though, however, that are in question that should be monitored by every team in the Yahoo Fantasy Football League for the TST Total Sports Talk. Those games are the Jacksonville Jaguars hosting the Tennessee Titans on Sunday at 1 p.m. It's in Jacksonville. The whole state of Miami is still suffering from Hurricane Irma, and it'll be really interesting to see whether or not they play the game in Jacksonville, Florida on the weekend. The other game that they're monitoring is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They have a home game hosted right now where they will host the Chicago Bears. That game is very much in limbo also. The NFL have stated that they have 6 days to make a decision on whether or not they will play these respected games. It's not just a case of whether or not the storm is still active as when it comes game time. It's the recovery of the stadium to make sure that it's in good enough shape to house a football game on Sunday afternoon. So keep informed, and you just make sure to double check as to whether or not these teams will be in action come Sunday. Other matchups, leading off week number 2, you have the Houston Texans at 0-1 facing Cincinnati Bengals at 0-1. Two teams that are desperate needs of a win after getting absolutely slaughtered. Cincinnati was they were blanked by the Baltimore Ravens due to Andy Dalton and his 4 interceptions. The Texans had to go through a quarterback change, and they still couldn't put more than 7 points up on the board in a loss to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Leading off our Sunday tilts, you have a nice AFC North matchup. The Cleveland Browns are into Baltimore to face Joe Flacco and the Baltimore Ravens, who are at 1-0 after that shutout of the Cincinnati Bengals last week. The Buffalo Bills are into Carolina, a couple of 1-0 teams to face off against Cam Newton and the Carolina Panthers, who won 23-3 last week over the San Francisco 49ers. Should be a decent game there. Arizona Cardinals minus David Johnson are in Indianapolis to face off against the Colts, who are at 0-1. It's understood, though, that they might have Jacoby Brissett under center for the Indianapolis Colts to start. Word on Andrew Luck is that they may not see him in Indy until at least October. We'll continue to monitor that situation. Tennessee Titans into Jacksonville to face off against Jacksonville Jaguars. That game, of course, is in limbo. It's an 0-1 Titans team against a 1-0 Jacksonville Jaguars team, who also happens to be leading the AFC South after week number 1. The Philadelphia Eagles are into Kansas City to face off against the Kansas City Chiefs. This should be a phenomenal matchup. Eagles, very strong in the week 1 win over the Washington Redskins, and the Chiefs were absolutely dismantling over the New England Patriots. This will be a shootout. This will be a phenomenal game if week 1 is any indication. What was supposed to be a shootout, a potential for a shootout, may not be as such. New England Patriots are into New Orleans to face off against New Orleans Saints. Both teams surprising 0-1 after week number 1. Should be a dandy. It's at 1 o'clock over on CBS. The Minnesota Vikings and the Pittsburgh Steelers renew acquaintances. Minnesota 1-0 after a big win over the New Orleans Saints. Sam Bradford looked very good for the Vikings. They're at 1-0. The Pittsburgh Steelers 1-0 as well. After narrowing out a win over the Cleveland Browns, they need to be better in week number 2. Chicago Bears at Tampa Bay. Bears 0-1 after a loss in week number 1 to the Falcons. Tampa Bay Buccaneers looking to play their first game of the season. They haven't played one yet, and they're desperate to get on the field and get going, I'm sure. That game's slated for 1 o'clock over on Fox. If it goes, if they decide to cancel, we'll keep you informed. The 4 o'clock games get started in L.A. The L.A. Chargers coming off a loss to the Broncos nail-biter last night. They host the Miami Dolphins. Will hopefully get their first game underway. It should be that one should be able to go after Miami was forced to cancel their game last week. Jay Cutler at the helm for the Miami Dolphins he's in LA Chargers to face Phillip Rivers and the Chargers. That one goes at 4:05 over on CBS. The New York Jets are into Oakland to face off against the Oakland Raiders, who are 1-0 after a big win against Tennessee. Jets 0-1 after a loss to the Buffalo Bills in week number 1. That should be a fantastic game. 4:05 over on CBS as well. The Dallas Cowboys and the Denver Broncos will go toe-to-toe from Denver. The Dallas Cowboys and Ezekiel Elliott, who will look to play in week number 2 as well. They look very good, top to bottom, Dallas Cowboys, and the Denver Broncos should give them a good test, I think. And that should be a phenomenal game. It's at Fox. It's on Fox at 4:25 on Sunday. Washington Redskins are into LA to face off against the LA Rams, who dismantled the Indianapolis Colts. They put up the most points in week number 1, 49 of them to be exact. They face a Redskins team who look to rebound from a kind of a flattening loss against the Philadelphia Eagles in week number 1. Kirk Cousins looks to be better in that one. LA Rams 1-0, Redskins 0-1. Our final Sunday afternoon game is in Seattle. The Seattle Seahawks look to rebound after losing to the Green Bay Packers in week number 1. They are 0-1, as well as the 49ers, who were beaten by 20 at the hands of the Carolina Panthers and Cam Newton. That one goes at 425 over on Fox. We have the Sunday nighter is the Green Bay Packers and the Atlanta Falcons. That one is at 8:30 over on NBC. A couple of 1-0 teams. This will be a juggernaut of a matchup, I'll tell you. The Atlanta Falcons, Matt Ryan. Green Bay Packers, Aaron Rodgers and his Arsenal. This should be a phenomenal matchup. It's the Sunday night game at 8:30 over on NBC. And finally, to wrap week number 2, it's the Detroit Lions, 1-0. Matt Stafford coming in after a phenomenal performance, 292 and 4 touchdowns in week number 1. They're 1-0, and they are in New York to face off against the New York Football Giants, who are 0-1 after a deflating loss against the Dallas Cowboys in week number 1. And ladies and gentlemen, that's your TST, Total Sports Talk inaugural Yahoo Fantasy Football update. This is Andrew Rogers signing off, and we'll see you next week. Take care, folks, and enjoy your fantasy football league.